On a very jam-packed Wednesday episode of Locked On Hurricanes, we get an injury update. Player stock are on the rise, and we get to preview the Hurricanes' upcoming matchup against a divisional foe. So strap in. Hope you have some snacks and some drinks, and hope you enjoy this episode as we dive into a lot that surrounds your Carolina Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I'm also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we are going to be going over the Pyotr Kochetkov injury update per Elliotte Friedman. Hopefully it is some good news. Luckily, it's not going to be as long as we thought it was going to be. Also get to talk about Martin Necas a little bit more. I know we have talked about him a lot over the last few episodes, but there's been a lot of notice going around the league right now as his player stock is on the rise. And we also get to preview the Hurricanes' upcoming game on Wednesday night against divisional foe, the New York Rangers. But before we jump into all of that, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, like I said, we did get some news from Elliotte Friedman on social media earlier in the day on, well, probably around afternoon-ish time on Tuesday, in the fact that Pyotr Kochetkov, per the Carolina Hurricanes, is considered day-to-day. Won't be available for the Wednesday night game against New York Rangers, but he could possibly be back, or mainly could be back for the weekend, which, you know, with the Hurricanes having a back-to-back on Friday and Saturday against the Florida Panthers, of course, that's a home-and-home set with the first game of that set being in Carolina Friday, and then the Panthers on Saturday. There is a good chance you might have him back for probably the Friday game or hopefully at least the Saturday game. So that is some good news overall for the fact that while he is in concussion protocol, luckily it's not the case like it was last year where we lost him for like 8 games. It was like 2 to 3. It was almost like a month that he was out for, close to 2 to 3 weeks. So if it's all good, if the signs look right, if he's feeling 100%, and hopefully if they're not rushing him back, because obviously the one thing you really want to worry about is his health, because you don't want to rush a guy back really quickly. So if he is 100% ready to go and there's not going to be any issues, then they feel like that he's 100% safe. Then if you're the Hurricanes, you're in a good spot. Then you're luckily not having to go through a gauntlet of this week where, yes, you did beat the Dallas Stars on Monday night, and you do have the New York Rangers, so that's going to be interesting to see who you go with in net on that night. But now you're going to the back-to-back, and hopefully having one of your 1A, 1B goaltenders back in Pyotr Kochetkov. Like I said, as long as he's healthy, that's the main thing. But it's still definitely a cause for concern for the Hurricanes, especially for the fact that this is his second concussion in the last 2 years. Like I said, missed 8 games last year. So far, it looks like he's only going to miss a couple games for this one, but it's still a level of concern, like trying to make sure he stays healthy and takes care of his head and stuff like that. But as long as they don't rush him back, and if he feels like he's ready to go, then that's a good sign. At least you're going to get him back sooner rather than later. I know also on socials, Kevin Weeks, former Carolina Hurricanes goaltender, now working with the NHL Network and ESPN and all that as an analyst, or Shady 80 as everyone knows him as. He has been putting out there that the Hurricanes are very interested in looking at the goalie market right now, and they're very active on looking to see who they can add. And that's even after the update with Pyotr Kochetkov. He says, even with the update on Pyotr possibly being back this weekend, you still have Frederik Andersen out for the next 8 to 12 weeks. And do you feel like you feel comfortable with having Martin as the backup? So it seems like rumblings are that the Hurricanes are possibly looking to get someone in free agent, or not free agency, but looking for to nab someone in a trade. Or who knows? There could be a goalie right now who's a free agent that no one has signed yet that they might go after as well. But it makes you wonder what the goalie market looks like because, I know the Pittsburgh Penguins are looking to sell their, pretty much everyone outside of Sidney Crosby. I don't think you go for Tristan Jarry in his new 5-year contract, but, there's Alex Nedeljkovic. Do you bring him back? Do you bring back Alex Lyon from Detroit? Do you look at Anton Forsberg from the Ottawa Senators? Mackenzie Blackwood of the San Jose Sharks? Val Melka from the Utah Hockey Club, if they're willing to give him up. There's a lot of question marks of like who could they possibly go out and grab, and like I said, for me, it's like I still see where the Hurricanes would go down the path of they're not going to go after anyone. They're just going to ride out the next 8 to 12 weeks with Pyotr and Spencer Martin. But let's say Pyotr gets hurt again, which hopefully, knock on wood, doesn't happen. Then we're back into the predicament once again where you're kind of worried that you're down to your third or fourth string goalie. So I can see the Hurricanes making a move. It's just who's on their target list. Of course, no one's going to know that until if we do get a trade announcement from the Hurricanes themselves saying, hey, they traded so-and-so or they traded draft picks and a prospect, or maybe just draft picks to insert team name for a certain guy that they went after. So we're not going to know anything of, who they're looking at, who they're going to be, who's on their target list. So like I said, there's a possibility they could make a trade. How likely is it? I'm still into the 65 to 75% camp of they're not going to make a move, then they're just going to ride it out because, like I said it earlier when Pierre got hurt, you're going to be putting a Band-Aid on a small problem that's short term. Now, what happens when Frederick Anderson comes back in 8 to 12 weeks? Then what? Then you're going to have 3 goalies. You're going to figure out how to either move one of them or you're going to have to put them through waivers to go to the AHL. Or you run with 3 goalies, and I don't think you really want to rotate 3 goaltenders if you're the Hurricanes. So it's a lot of things to consider if you're Carolina. And like I said, for me, it's like I can see why they won't make a move just because this is not a knee-jerk reaction team. And like I said, you got to deal with the cap space that's still available. How are you going to work that? Because you're also trying to accumulate all that towards the trade deadline in March. But if you go get someone and Freddie comes back, then what are you going to do then with 3 goaltenders? And you got to worry about waiver wires and all this other stuff too. Unless you send another guy down, then you have 3 goalies. So it's not a clear-cut black and white situation if you're Carolina. Now, they could say, hey, Freddie, thank you very much, but we're going to trade you somewhere else when you come back because we went and got this guy. That's an avenue that could go down too, where they still acquire a goaltender from another team. And then if Anderson comes back, they might trade him off somewhere and just be like, hey, thanks for your services, but we got this guy for another year or 2 left on his contract, or we just feel like that we can depend on him to stay healthy for the rest of the season. That's an avenue too. So like I said, I don't see a trade happening, but there's a possibility they could go get someone, and don't rule out a scenario where you could see Anderson getting traded when he's back from, injured reserve. Just that way they can keep the guy that they brought in and kind of figure out some cap space there. So who knows? There's a lot of different avenues to go down for the Carolina Hurricanes, but at least we know for right now, in the last week of November, right before Thanksgiving, we know that Pyotr Kochetkov, as of right now, might have a good chance to be back for the weekend against the Florida Panthers in the back-to-back. So if it's Friday, great. If it's Saturday, well, at least we have him back for at least one of those back-to-backs. But, as long as he's healthy and ready to go, then that's fine. Because like I said, for me, I don't want to rush him back because you got him for another 2 seasons after this, and you get stuck with the rest of this season too. No need to rush him back if he's not 100%. But if he's 100%, if he's coming back fine from the concussion protocol and he's all cleared, green light, ready to go, then awesome. Then they dodged the bullet with him not being out longer than it was last year. So definitely something to keep an eye on too, but still sending thoughts and prayers to Pyotr, and hopefully he is recovering nicely. Now we're past the injury updates. Now we get to talk about a little more about Martin Necas and his really hot start to the season and how the league is taking notice. And he's putting himself in some pretty good company for the Carolina Hurricanes. So stick around as we'll talk about number 88 himself, Martin Necas, here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. PSA for anyone who rents. If you haven't heard of Built, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Built. You don't even have to check your landlord to start earning points that you can use towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, even your next rent payment. Let me break it down for you. There's no cost to join Built. And as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points towards. The points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent when you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonAHL. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonAHL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. That is joinbuilt.com/lockedonAHL. Start earning points on your rent payments today. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. And that's just not for sports, but comedy, concerts, theaters, and so much more. And the Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Like I said, you're curating it to make it easier for you to save money on your sports if you're going to hockey, baseball, or whatever. Or maybe you're going to a concert. Maybe you want to go see Trivium. Or maybe there's let's say AC/DC's coming to town. There you can save money on that too. Theater. If you want to go see a Broadway play, well, they can take care of you there too. And with our all-in pricing feature, if you toggle this, it'll show you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Now, my favorite feature is their panoramic view seat finder. And with that is you can check out what your seat looks like in the app before you buy. So you don't got to worry about awkward angles or obstructive views. It takes all the guesswork out of buying that. And that's what you want to do with Gametime. You want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 after your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONAHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Well, it's game time. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said, at the end of segment 1, we're going to be talking about Martin Necas and his player stock that is on the rise. Because as of right now, of course, he got a goal and assist on Monday night against the Dallas Stars. Of course, his goal being the game winner on the power play. It puts him up to 35 points on the season. That's tied with Nathan McKinnon for 35. Of course, now that's one ahead of Kirill Kaprizov and Jack Eichel, with Nikita Kucherov and Mikko Rantanen both at 32. And then round at the top 10. Sam Reinhart at 31. And then you got Kel McCarr, Leon Draisaitl, and Dylan at 30. And then Dylan Strome in 10th with 29 points. And this is something that's very interesting. This is from AHL Stats via Walt Ruff. Martin Necas is the first Czechia or Czech Republic born player to lead the NHL in points outright or tied with a minimum of 20 games played since Jacob Voracek back on March 25th, 2015. So we're talking 9 years in between a Czech player leading the points either as a tie or outright lead. And that's Jacob Voracek. And that's really saying something too, because he is a, Flyers, Blue Jackets legend. So that's awesome to see that Martin Necas is the first Czech to do that in a very long time. And the funny part is, so he's actually the first Canes player in the NHL to lead in scoring outright tied or minimum 20 games played since Rod Brind'Amour was tied with Marian Hossa back in November 18th, 2006. So you're talking after the team already won the Cup in that summer of 2006, Rod Brind'Amour was tied with Marian Hossa for the points lead in the entire NHL. And the thing too is, so it was funny how finding all that out, and then later in the day, Ryan Henkel of the Hockey News put out a thing. It was him and the Walt Ruff and all of them talking about Martin Necas, and this is what Ryan said. We were talking about Necas being at top of the league scoring with Brendan Moore, and Walt Ruff asked him if he knew who the last Kane to lead the league in scoring was. And Rod Brindamore said, I'll make a good guess. Probably Eric Stahl. Corey Lavalette, he's in this room. And then Rod goes, really? Geez, I was a good player. That's just hilarious for the fact that just like, honestly, Rod, don't ever change. Just don't change. It's hilarious to see the fact it's like, oh yeah, it's probably Eric Stahl. No, it was you back in 2006. It was like, huh, I was a good player, huh? Which, yes, Mr. Rod Brindamore, you were a great player. And how are you still not in the Hall of Fame? I will never know, but that's a different argument for another time. We already had an episode on that. If you haven't checked that out, go check out the Rod Brindamore snubbed episode. It's, I don't know. Either way, it's awesome to see that Martin Necas is leading the league, at least tied or outright for the NHL points lead. And the last Hurricane to do it is his head coach in Rod Brindamore. And he did it back in 2006 with Marian Hossa, which really tells you something, because this is pre-Marian Hossa, before he won all those cups with the Chicago Blackhawks. And even before, he did that little flip-flop where he was with the Detroit Red Wings and then flipped over to the Pittsburgh Penguins and lost back-to-back cups. But that just goes to show you how great of a season Martin Necas is having, for the fact that he's putting himself in good company with the Hurricanes, and in that he's the first Hurricane since 2006 to do it, and it was, of course, Canes legend Rod Brindamore. But he's the first Czech player since 2015 of Jakub Voracek to be tied or outright lead in the league with at least a minimum of 20 games. And he has 35. You're talking about stock rising for a guy like Martin Necas. It's good to see the fact that the league as a whole, and people who cover hockey as well around the the NHL Network, or the personalities you see who making videos or working with networks that cover hockey a lot. Thank goodness there's at least some companies that want to cover the hockey, want to cover the NHL. But they're taking notice of what Martin Necas is doing, and it's like, okay, now it's not just Carolina Hurricanes fans noticing it. This is the entire league taking notice. And the fact that you don't usually see a Carolina Hurricanes player at the top of the list. You don't usually see them in the top 10 most of the time. And now we have a guy top joint lead with Nathan MacKinnon, who's usually always in the top 3 every year. I mean, he was in a battle last year with McDavid and Nikita Kucherov for most points. But just to have him where he's at, it's good to see that the hard work he's putting in is being reflected. And it shows that what a hot, it's a supernova start Martin Necas is on, and you love to see it for him, because all the turmoil he had during the offseason of like, is he going to stay? Is he going to, is he going to go? Does he have a tumultuous relationship with the Hurricanes? Does he have an issue with Rod Brindamore? All these teams are considering about trading for him. There was a possible trade at the draft with the Jackets. There was a trade where the Jets wanted him, but in the end, he stays in Carolina, signs a 2-year deal, doesn't get that pay raise, and you're like, okay, you're going from $3 million to $6.5 million. Now you got to prove it. And I will say right now, he is more than proving it, for the fact that he already has 35 points already this season, and doesn't look like he's in any way slowing down. Yes, his point total got broken at 13, which was one short of tying the franchise, for the Hurricanes at least, record. But now he's on another one. I think he's on a 3 or 4 game point streak once again. So it just goes to show that even despite losing the point streak once, he's already on another one. It seems like he just can't be stopped. So it's just good to see the stock in Martin Necas and who he is continuing to rise. And now the fact that we're going past Hurricanes fans and Raleigh media keeping an eye on this. Now this is a league-wide NHL-wide hockey coverage of everyone who covers the league. Now everyone is taking this is a national notice now, not just a regional notice. So you love to see it from Martin Necas. And hopefully on Wednesday night against the New York Rangers, he can keep that going. And speaking of which, it's going to be time to previewing the Hurricanes matchup against the New York Rangers for the first time this season. So stick around as I'll jump into the preview of Hurricanes against the Rangers here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said, now it's time to preview the Carolina Hurricanes matchup against the New York Rangers. It is a 7 o'clock puck drop on Wednesday night. It will, of course, be on FanDuel Sports Network South and on radio at 99.9 The Fan. This is the first game of a 4-game series matchup between the two sides who, as we all know, clearly do not like each other very much at all. Like I said, the first one is tonight on November 27th at 7 o'clock. The next matchup will be in New York on December 22nd. Game 3 of the season series will be in New York once again on January 28th. And then the last matchup between the two sides will actually be a 3 p.m. start on April 12th back in Carolina. And rewind real quick. The game on December 22nd, that's going to be in New York. That is a 12:30 p.m. Eastern start. So we got 2 7 o'clock games on the 27th of November and January 28th. And then December 22nd, 12:30. And then April 12th at 3 o'clock. Now, looking at the tails of the tape, where are these two teams stacking up? Power play-wise, the Hurricanes are 7th in the league at 26.5, with New York Rangers being at 21.2. Now, penalty kill-wise, this is a very tight one between both sides, as they're both in the top 5. But the Rangers are 2nd compared to the Hurricanes, who are in 5th, and they're at 89.2, while Carolina's at 83.8. Face-off percentage, they're 5th and 6th in the league, with Carolina being in 5th with 53% compared to the Rangers' 52.9. Now, goals for Carolina is still top 3 in the league after scoring 6 goals against Dallas the other night. They have a goals for per game average of 4, which is 3rd, and of course the Rangers at 3.35, which is 11th in the league. And then goals allowed, Carolina wasn't pretty up there, but they're still in the top 5. They are 5th at 2.57 goals allowed per game, while the Rangers are 10th at 2.75. Now, looking over the last 10 games, the New York Rangers are actually on a 3-game losing streak after getting smoked by St. Louis the other night. So they're playing about 500 hockey, but they are on a 3-game losing streak after they had a 3-game winning streak against San Jose, Seattle, and Vancouver, but lost to Calgary, Edmonton, and St. Louis. So they're a little bit on a skid right now. But your Carolina Hurricanes are 6-3-1. Got the comeback win against Dallas on Monday night, 6-4, epic comeback fashion. This, of course, is after losing the shootout to the Blue Jackets and then losing the second half of a back-to-back against the Devils. But they did beat Philly the game before, and that was part of a 3-game winning streak. Looking at the Rangers, who to keep an eye on, obviously it's Timmy Panarin. In 20 games, he's got 26 points, 12 goals, 14 assists. He is a -1, though. So while he is scoring, he is definitely on the ice a lot, though, when getting scored upon. Just other guys to keep an eye on, too. Cooley, 9 goals, 17 points. He's a +11. Alex Lafreniere, 16 points in 20 games, but he's a -8. Surprisingly enough, Mika Zibanejad's a -13 with 4 goals and 15 points. My goodness. And this is still a team where supposedly they might be think about shaking up the roster too. So there's a lot going on with the Rangers right now where you're looking at Chris Kreider's name has been mentioned. Jacob Trouba's been mentioned. I mean, Chris Kreider right now in 19 games has 9 goals. And that's all of his points are all goals, but he's a -1. So it's very interesting when you look at the team of how, they're 12-7-1. They're on a 3-game skip, and now they're talking about possibly shaking up the roster. So I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see how it works out for them. Defense, Adam Fox, 17 points, all of them assists. He's a +3. Talking about Jacob Trouba, 6 points, all of them assists in 20 games. Then looking at the goaltending, it's interesting when you look at the goalie stat totals. We look at what the record is. It's kind of surprising. Like they're still up there with the Hurricanes by overall numbers. Igor Shesterkin's 8-6-1 with a .914 save percentage and a .291 goals against. Not bad, all things considered, but his goals against is pretty high for a guy like Igor Shesterkin. And then Jonathan Quick is 4-1 in 6 games with a .943 save percentage and a .185 goals against. So when Jonathan Quick's in, the Rangers are doing pretty decent, but I don't know. It's interesting when you look at it for the fact that they're 12-7. Carolina Hurricanes 15-5-1. With a team with 257 goals against and an .897 save percentage with 1 shutout. Of course, the shutout being Spencer Martin. But with Pyotr Kochetkov, he's 10-2 with a .242 goals against and a .904 save percentage. Of course, he's not going to be in the game. I'm curious to see if they're going to go with Elliotte Friedman, but I would probably guess since they had the day off in between, I would not be shocked if it's Spencer Martin, who is 2-2-1 with a 3.40 goes against and an .854 save percentage. But looking at the team stats overall for your Carolina Hurricanes, obviously Martin Necas, 35 points in 21 games, 12 goals, 23 assists. He is a +8. Sebastian Aho, after having a 4-point night, have yourself a Monday night Sebastian Aho. 23 points in 21 games. He's a +1. Andrei Svechnikov, 18 points in 21 games. And Seth Jarvis comes back, 3-point night. Welcome back, Seth Jarvis. 5 goals, 14 points in 14 games. So while he has played less than the rest of the team, still a point-per-game guy. Jordan Martinook is a +12 on the season. How about 6 goals, 7 assists for 13 points? And looking at the defense, Shane Gostisbehere had a multi-point night, 5 goals, 11 assists for 16 points in 21 games. Dmitry Orlov, 13 points in 21 games for himself, but him and Jalen Sheffield are a combined +37. You love to see that. Those two have been very underrated for the Hurricanes this year, and those two definitely get a lot of notice put on them. For the fact that you're a combined +37, you are shutting down so many teams while being on the ice when you're scoring a lot as well. The next best is Jacob Slavin at +8 and Brent Burns at +4. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the game's going to go for your Carolina Hurricanes. As always, these games are always close. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Spencer Martin and that you saw that on practice on, the other day where he was kind of in net. It's probably going to be him. Like I said, I would not be surprised if he's going to be in net for the Hurricanes because you had the day off. You really don't want to put Elliotte Friedman in net against a division rival, especially the fact that this is a huge game where points are on the line, when you're in a really tight points battle with the Rangers, the Devils, and some of the Capitals once again out of nowhere. But in goal, don't be surprised if it's Spencer Martin. But also, I'm curious to see how the lines are going to be too, because I know at practice it was Jarvis, Aho, Roslovic together. Maybe that'll stay. I know a lot of people were kind of hoping it was going to be Jarvis, Aho, and Blake, but I don't know. I guess we'll see when the time comes. But let me know in the comments, how are you feeling about the Carolina Hurricanes and Rangers? What's your prediction? Do you have a certain score prediction, or you know what? Even better, who's going to score the first goal for the Hurricanes? So in the comments, or if you're on YouTube, let me know in the comments, who do you think is going to score the first goal for the Hurricanes? And if you have a score prediction, let me know as well. Love to see everyone's predictions going into Wednesday night's game against the New York Rangers. But guys, that will do a Wednesday Wednesday edition of Hurricane. Your first listen of the day. Your second listen, we're going to watch our fantasy hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, if you want to keep everything going on with covering your Carolina Hurricanes, well, you can check me out on One True Zach on X. Podcast is LO_Hurricanes. If you are on Blue Sky, I am at the Zachary Martin, so just check me out over there if you want to keep up with that as well. I am kind of posting on both sites. Try to do it simultaneously, but sometimes it'll be one over the other. But most of the time, I'm trying to keep it pretty even in terms of both sides of both apps. I do have a link tree on X and also on Blue Sky, and that's where you can find all my articles at the Hockey Rares, or just go to thehockeyrares.com. You can find my author page at Zach Martin. You can check out all my articles are on over there. If you want to check out my other podcast, the Surgecast, well, just look up the Surgecast on podcast platforms and on YouTube. Now, for this show, well, Locked On Hurricanes on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you listen. Leave a 5-star rating and review, because if you do, I might just read it on the show. YouTube, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Hit subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up button, let me know if you like the show as well. And like I said, in the comments below, give me your first goal scorer for your Carolina Hurricanes, and also if you have a score prediction, leave that as well. But also, make sure to share the podcast with other Caniacs so they become everydayers just like you. But I hope everyone enjoyed the Wednesday episode of Locked On Hurricanes. Hope everyone enjoys their Wednesday night watch on the Hurricanes. Hopefully beating the New York Rangers, because it'll be nice when we do beat those guys. But until next time, as always, let's go Canes.